don't usually post stuff like this. Honestly, I'm already second guessing it. I've typed and deleted this like 5 times. But I haven't been sleeping right, and my girlfriend says I've been grinding my teeth so hard she can hear it. I don't know. Maybe writing it out will help. Or maybe I'll delete it in the morning. If anyone else here works maritime SAR, maybe you'll tell me I'm overreacting. Anyway, I'm a rescue swimmer with the Coast Guard, stationed out of Air Station Kodiak. I've been doing this for 9 years. I'm not some rookie who freaks out over weird currents or a seal brushing my fin. I've done night jumps in 20-foot seas. I've pulled guys out of crab pots. I've had hypothermic fishermen puke blood on me. I'm not squeamish. This wasn't any of that. This happened in late November last year. I remember the date because it was the day after Thanksgiving, and I'd been annoyed about being on duty. We were on 24-hour rotation, and I'd pulled the short straw. I'd eaten leftover turkey in the break room microwave, and it made the whole place smell like wet cardboard. Stupid detail, but it sticks with me. Weather was typical for that time. Low ceiling, maybe 600 feet. Light snow. Wind around 15 knots from the northwest. Seas were 6 to 8 feet, nothing crazy. Water temp was about 41 Fahrenheit. We got a call around 1840 from a fishing vessel about 40 miles southwest of Kodiak. They'd lost a deckhand overboard. No name given at first, just one male, mid-30s, fell off starboard side while hauling gear. They said they'd marked the position and were circling. We launched in an MH-60. I remember the pilot complaining about the coffee machine in the hangar again. He said it kept leaving grounds in the pot and he was going to write someone up for it apparently, which he obviously wasn't. Just the usual pre-flight grumbling. Everything felt normal. We got on scene around 1920. It was already full dark. The vessel was a 58-footer, older hull. Looked like it had been patched a dozen times. They had their deck lights on and were doing slow circles. We talked to the skipper over VHF. He sounded not panicked exactly, but strange, like he was distracted. He kept pausing mid-sentence. At one point he said, "He was right there. He was right." And then stopped talking for maybe 10 seconds before saying, "We're still searching." We did our standard pattern. Thermal vision didn't show anything. No heat signature, which isn't unusual in cold water after 30 plus minutes. We spotted a buoy they'd thrown out near the coordinates. The pilot held a hover and they lowered me. The water was calm enough that the rotor wash didn't kick up too much spray. I swam towards the buoy, did a quick search pattern. Visibility was maybe 10 feet with the light. Nothing. No clothing, no bubbles, no debris either. Just the buoy, rocking. I radioed up that I was going to expand the search radius. They acknowledged. I remember hearing the flight mech humming through the comms. He does that when he's bored. Some old country song. I swam maybe 30 yards east, then south, and then west. Nothing. I wasn't expecting much, honestly. Most mob cases in that water, at night, in winter, you know the stats. But then, I saw something. Not the guy, not a body, just something. About 15 feet down, there was this shape. At first I thought it was a rock outcropping, or maybe a piece of netting. It wasn't moving, it was just there. A dark patch against the lighter sea floor. Except, the sea floor shouldn't have been that close. We were in about 180 feet of water, according to the vessel's last report. I thought maybe my depth perception was screwed up. Happens sometimes with the light refraction. So I dove a little, maybe 5 to 6 feet, just to get a better angle. The shape didn't change. It still looked like it was right below me, like I could reach it if I kicked down another few feet. I hovered there for a minute. I even checked my depth gauge. It read 12 feet, which made no sense. I should have been floating over open water. I told myself it was a thermocline messing with the light, or silt, or my mask fogging. I actually took a second to clear my mask, even though it didn't need it. When I looked again, the shape was gone. Just vanished into thin air. I felt stupid for staring at nothing, so I swam back towards the buoy. I didn't mention it over the comms. It sounded too dumb. "Hey guys, I saw a shadow that shouldn't have been there." Yeah, no. We wrapped the search after another 20 minutes. The pilot said fuel was getting low, and the skipper on the fishing vessel said they'd keep looking until first light. We hoisted back up. I remember my hands were shaking a little, but I blamed the cold. Back at the station, I filled out the report. Standard stuff. I didn't write anything about the shape. I didn't even think about it much. I showered, microwaved more turkey, watched some dumb YouTube videos on my phone until I fell asleep in the recliner in the ready room. That should have been the end of it. But the next morning, around 6:30 a.m, the skipper called the station again. He said they'd found the deckhand. Except they hadn't found him exactly. They'd seen him. Standing on the deck. Alive. The skipper said he came up from below like nothing had happened. He had dry clothes, no injuries, and no sign of hypothermia. He just walked into the galley and asked why everyone looked freaked out. The skipper sounded embarrassed telling us. He kept saying, "I swear to God he went over. I swear he did." He said the other deckhands saw it too. They'd watched him fall. They'd thrown the buoy. They'd called us immediately. But the guy, the deckhand, said he never fell. He said he'd been in his bunk since 1700 with a migraine. He said he didn't even know we'd been called. We asked if they wanted medical evaluation. They said no, he seemed fine. They were heading back to Kodiak and would file a statement. I remember the pilot making a joke about ghost fishermen and everyone laughing. I laughed too. But it didn't sit right. Because the position where they said he fell, the coordinates they gave us, were the same spot where I saw that shape under me. And I keep thinking about my depth gauge reading 12 feet in 180 feet of water. And how the shape disappeared the second I looked away. I didn't connect those things at the time. Not really. I just felt strange. Like I'd missed something obvious. The next weird thing happened just 3 days later. So 3 days after the deckhand thing, we got another call. This one wasn't a man overboard. It was a Mayday relay from a cargo vessel reporting an unidentified object snagged on their anchor chain. That's not unusual by itself. Sometimes it's fishing gear, sometimes it's a log, sometimes it's just a weird tangle of kelp. But the vessel said the chain tension was behaving strangely, which is a weird phrase, but that's what they said. They were anchored about 12 miles off Chiniak Point. We launched around 14:10. Weather was better this time. Overcast, light chop, maybe 3 to 4 feet seas. Water temp about the same. I remember being annoyed because I just made a cup of coffee. Folgers, the red tub, the only thing left in the break room, and I didn't get to drink it. I left it on the counter, and when we got back, it had that weird skin on top. Anyway, we got on scene. The cargo vessel was a 300-footer, older but well kept. They had their anchor chain running off the bow like normal. Nothing looked off from the air. We talked to the captain. He said the chain had gone slack and then tight again, multiple times, even though they weren't drifting. He said it felt like something was pulling on it. He sounded embarrassed saying that. We decided I'd go in and take a look. Not a deep dive, just enough to see if something was wrapped around the chain. The water was clearer than usual, maybe 20 feet visibility. I could see the chain descending into the greenish dark. I followed it down maybe 15 feet. Nothing unusual, just the chain swaying slightly with the swell. I went a little deeper, maybe 25 feet. Still nothing. I was just about to radio up that it was probably just kelp or a snag that had already come loose. Then, the chain jerked. Not a lot, just a quick twitch, like someone had plucked it with a finger. It startled me enough that I kicked backward. I thought maybe the vessel had shifted, but I looked up and the bow was steady. I followed the chain down another few feet. I don't know why. Curiosity, I guess, or stubbornness. I kept thinking it had to be something simple. Then I saw something odd. The chain was hanging straight down, but about 40 feet below me, the water looked wrong. Like the colour changed. Not darker exactly, more like the water had a seam in it. Like two layers that didn't mix. Like oil and water. I'd seen thermoclines before, but this wasn't that. It wasn't gradual. It was a distinct line. A horizontal line where the water below looked thicker. That's the only word I can think of. Thicker. I hovered there, trying to figure out if it was just the light angle. I even tilted my head to see if it changed. It didn't. Then the chain twitched again. Harder this time. Enough that I felt the vibration through the water. I radioed up that I was coming back. I didn't want to be near that line. I didn't want to cross it. I didn't even want to get closer. As I started ascending, I glanced down one more time. I don't know why. Habit, maybe. And I saw something that I've been trying not to think about since. The chain wasn't hanging straight anymore. It was angled. Like something below that line was pulling it sideways. Not up or down. Sideways. And the angle was increasing. Slowly, but definitely. I kicked harder. I didn't want to be anywhere near whatever was happening. I didn't say anything over comms because I didn't know how to explain it without sounding like I was panicking. When I got back on the hello, the flight mech asked why I was breathing so hard. I said the current was stronger than expected. He shrugged and went back to checking the hoist cable. We told the vessel we didn't see anything dangerous and recommended they weigh anchor and reposition. They said they would. We flew back. I didn't write anything unusual in the report. I didn't mention the line in the water, or the chain angle, or the way the tension felt like it was coming from below and sideways at the same time. I didn't want to deal with the questions. That should have been the end of it, too. But 2 days later, the same cargo vessel called again. This time, they weren't at anchor. They were underway, heading towards Seward. The captain said they'd found something on deck. didn't want to describe it over the radio. He just said it wasn't theirs, and it shouldn't be there. We flew out again. It was early morning, maybe 7:10. Low light, calm seas. I remember the pilot complaining that he'd forgotten his gloves and his hands were freezing on the controls. When we landed on their deck, the crew was standing in a loose circle around something covered with a tarp. The captain looked pale. He said they'd found it near the bow around 5:30. No one had seen or heard anything during the night. They pulled the tarp back. It was an anchor buoy. Not theirs, not from any vessel in the area. Old, faded orange, with chipped paint and a frayed line attached. The kind used by small fishing boats, not cargo ships. But that wasn't the weird part. The weird part was the tag. Every buoy has a tag or a number. This one had a metal plate bolted to it, corroded but readable. It had the same registration number as the buoy from the man overboard case. The one the fishing vessel had thrown out when the deckhand supposedly fell. The one I'd swum next to. The one that should have still been floating 40 miles southwest of Kodiak. I remember staring at it and feeling this slow, cold feeling in my stomach. Not fear exactly, more like confusion that wouldn't resolve. Like when you see a word spelled wrong, but you can't figure out why it looks wrong. I asked the captain where they'd found it. He pointed to the bow. He said it was just sitting there. No water around it, no damage to the deck. Just sitting there, like someone had placed it gently. We asked if anyone had touched it. He said no. They'd covered it immediately. We took photos and logged it. We told them we'd take it back to the station. They seemed relieved to get rid of it. Back at the station, I put the buoy in the equipment shed. I didn't want it anywhere near the main building. I don't know why. It just felt wrong having it inside. That night, I went back to look at it again. I don't know what I expected. Maybe to convince myself it was just a coincidence. Maybe to check the number again. When I opened the shed, the buoy was still there. The same spot, the same frayed line. But the metal tag was gone. It hadn't been broken off or removed. It was just gone. 4 empty bolt holes where it had been. I checked the floor, the shelves, the corners. Nothing. I didn't tell anyone. I just closed the shed and walked back to the barracks. This just threw me off completely. It felt like something was happening that didn't fit into any category I knew. The next morning, the buoy was gone too. I don't understand it. The shed was locked. There weren't even any footprints in the frost outside. I didn't report that either. I just pretended it hadn't happened. Since then, little things have been bothering me. Not big things, just small stuff that shouldn't matter, but does. Like how my depth gauge from that night, when I saw the shape, still has condensation inside the display, even though I dried it and stored it properly. It's the only piece of gear that does that. Or how the deckhand from the first incident never filed a statement. He came to the station, sat in the waiting area for maybe 10 minutes, and then left without talking to anyone. The skipper said he changed his mind. I saw him through the window as he walked back to the truck. He didn't look at the building. He didn't look at anything. Just straight ahead. Or how the cargo vessel's anchor chain, according to their maintenance log, had a section that was stretched beyond expected tolerance. It was just stretched, like taffy. The thing is, metal doesn't do that. I also keep thinking about that line in the water, that seam, and how the chain angled towards it, and how the buoy ended up on a ship that wasn't anywhere near where it should have been. I don't have a theory. I'm not saying it was anything supernatural. I don't even believe in that stuff. I just know that something happened that doesn't make sense. And I keep thinking about one stupid detail that didn't bother me at the time, but does now. When I first swam down to the buoy during the man overboard case, I remember the water being unusually calm. Like the surface was moving, but below it, everything felt still. Too still. Like the water wasn't moving at all past a certain depth. I didn't think about it then, but now it feels important. Or maybe I'm just connecting dots that aren't there. I don't know. I just know that ever since last week, I've been checking the water differently. Not for people. Not for debris either. For lines. For seams. For places where the water looks thicker than it should. And I don't like that I'm doing that. I don't like it at all.